Hi, I'm Liam Gill. I work here at Felix as an account executive. Today I'm going to show you through some points of how Felix can help enable the resources industry to streamline its vendor management and procurement. My first point I'd like to talk about is how we can help with the collaborative approach to vendor management. From my experience working with clients in the resources industry, who typically have multiple mine sites that they own and operate, is they often operate within silos of each other, confining the knowledge and learnings that they have from each site and not sharing them around internally. Felix helps break down these silos and promotes collaboration and transparency across sites, ultimately delivering better outcomes for the organization and each of its supply chain partners when it comes to vendor management and procurement. Firstly, I'd like to show you how Felix can help share the insights of vendors' prior performance across teams. Here on the vendor listing screen, you can see the vendor's name, and then on the right-hand side, we've got their performance score. This score is an accumulation of evaluations that have been completed by various individuals within an organization. If I click into a specific performance score, our customers can create their own configurable performance evaluation templates to score their vendors against. The second point that I'd like to share with you, on the vendor listing screen here, you can see this column around tags. Tags in Felix are unique attributes that you can associate with the vendor to help inform decision making. Some common tags that we see within the resources industry are if a vendor is a risk to modern slavery, if they hold specific ISO certifications, or if the vendor might have a high safety rating. The third point that I'd like to run you through is the interaction history between the vendor and the organization. Within a vendor's profile and on their interactions tab, I can now see all the times that we've sent this vendor an RFQ, we've raised an engagement against them, or completed an evaluation. This capability is really beneficial for new starters in the business who don't have that prior knowledge of how the relationship's been between the organization and the vendor. The second point that I'd like to take you through is contract management and how Felix helps enable this process. Often we see supply chain and procurement teams establishing framework agreements with key strategic suppliers and contractors. By doing so, organizations can often capture significant savings and bolster relationships with their key vendors and ensure the continuity of their operation maintains. This exercise of setting up framework agreements is a strategic process and often can take months to do. All too often we hear of situations where supply chain teams become frustrated with site-based personnel who have engaged with vendors for a good or services outside of those who they have framework agreements with. This creates ripple effects into the business, such as the need for a new supplier to go through a pre-qualification process, which takes time and resourcing away internally. Let's show you how Felix can help enable this process. In the vendor listing screen, I can now search for my vendors who I've got a framework agreement with. I can do this via the tags. I can then go a step further and understand who I've got an active contract with. Right now, we've only got one vendor who we've got a framework agreement set up with. I can now click into this vendor's profile and access their contract information where we have the framework agreement in place. The third process that I'd like to run you through is collaborative sourcing. Often the approach to running a tender process for a good or service involves multiple departments and stakeholders. What we often see is that this whole process is conducted over email. The challenge and limitation that comes with this is that it provides no visibility, no governance, and it lacks a level of standardization. Unless everyone is included on every single email correspondence between the business and the vendor, this process can quickly become siloed. Let's show you how Felix can help. Felix brings the sourcing process online into a centralized location. Within the sourcing event, you can then collaborate with multiple stakeholders in your team by adding in RFQ watches. This will ensure that every time an RFI comes in from a vendor, it will notify all the stakeholders that are included. Within the quoting process, you can actually see where the vendor's at in terms of opening the request, downloading the project documents, and when they've actually started quoting on the project. If I look at communications, I can now see all the messaging between my team and the vendors. I can then send out a new message to all of our vendors, or I can direct message one-to-one, keeping them in the loop of any updates of the project or tender process. Finally, you can also see how Felix helps bring in those multiple departments as part of the evaluation process. On the left-hand side, you can see 6 different criteria that we've scored the vendor against across quality, local content, commercial terms, safety, industrial relations, and environmental. These scores total up to 100, and you can then see the two vendors on the right who have been evaluated by our team. Thanks for taking time to learn more about Felix for the mining industry. If you'd like to learn more, feel free to reach out to the Felix team.